up, GENNOW? Thanks for joining us again for another week. We are starting a brand new series on the life of Joseph called What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. And Kristen's going to start us off with week 1. But before we jump into that, I challenge you to get to a place where you can hear from God. Maybe you need to get alone. Maybe you need to go sit somewhere else other than your bed and tune in to what He has for you.
So I want to start by telling you guys a story. I grew up with 2 siblings, and I remember that often around dinner time at our house, we would hear my mom say to us in frustration, "I am not a restaurant." And she would say this because myself and my siblings, we were not shy about our opinions about food. So if we didn't like what she cooked that night, we would have no problem saying, "Mom, really? Salmon again?" We were comfortable expressing our opinions because we were in our own home and around our own family. But I have never gone to a friend's house, found out what we were eating for dinner, and said, "Dude, really? Salmon? Can I have a PB&J instead?" There are a lot of things that we do at home that just aren't acceptable in public, right? Like, think about it. You would never talk to your coach the way that you talk to your stepmom, right? You would never be as mean to your teammate as you are to your brother. So why is this? I think it's because our responses to things in life are more often actually responses to the question, how does it affect me? Like, think about it. You have to stay home to babysit your sister instead of going out with your friends. Your response? You treat your sister poorly the whole night. Your brother scrolls TikTok all night while you study for hours for the history test and he ends up getting a better grade. Your response? You make sure he knows you're ticked at him all day long. Often, we're all pretty selfish people, and I don't think that we really understand the impact that this can have on the people in our houses and just the people that we interact with on a regular basis. So why am I talking about this? Well, this is a series about a guy in the Bible named Joseph. And so let me tell you a little bit about Joseph and his home life. So Joseph came from like a super complicated family, but I'm gonna try to simplify it. Here we go. There was this guy named Jacob. And Jacob loved this girl, Rachel, but her dad wouldn't let her marry Jacob until he worked for him for 7 years. Remember, women had very little value outside of their father and their husband in this culture. So Jacob does it, but then is tricked into marrying Rachel's sister Leah instead. Rachel and Leah's dad says that in order for Jacob to marry Rachel, he has to work for 7 more years. So Jacob does it. Finally, he marries Rachel, but of course, she can't have children. So, Jacob has 10 sons with Leah and 2 other women who aren't his wives. And then miraculously, Rachel gets pregnant with, you guessed it, Joseph. Because Rachel is Jacob's favorite wife, Joseph becomes his favorite son. After Joseph was born, Rachel ended up having 1 more son. So we have this family that has 1 dad, 4 moms, and 12 sons. So you can imagine there was some built-up tension. Everyone knew who the favorites in the family were. So this is where we pick up with Joseph's story. So let me give you a couple examples of how Jacob favored Joseph among all of the brothers. First of all, Jacob makes Joseph this like beautiful, many-colored robe. And you have to understand that a new robe like this is a really big deal. It would be like getting a brand new pair of Nike Air Forces or like AirPod Pros. Like, he was so excited about it. And the robe serves as this symbol to not only Joseph, but also the brothers of how much Jacob favored Joseph. And if that wasn't enough, Joseph ends up having this crazy dream, and he gathers all of his brothers around to tell him about it. "Listen to this dream," he said. "We were out in the field, tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly, my bundles stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine." Now let's just pause there for a second. This is not a dream about grain. Joseph knows it, and his brothers know it. What Joseph is actually saying is, hey guys, guess what? One day, I'm gonna be way more powerful than you, and you're all gonna bow to me. How do you think this would go over if your brother or sister said this to you? Yeah, not well. His brothers responded, "So you think you will be our king, do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. But here's the thing, this isn't the last dream that Joseph has. He ends up having another one that has the same message, but this time his parents bow down to him too. And yet again, he gathers up all his brothers to tell them about the dream. Yeah, probably not his best move. So you might be listening to this story and thinking, who does this guy think he is? And chances are, you probably wouldn't go to school and tell your friends that someday they're gonna bow down to you. But think about it, at home, with your siblings, I mean, come on, you might be a little bit more quick to say something like that to your siblings. So just like you and me, Joseph responded to this situation by answering the question, how does this affect me? He didn't think about the feelings of his brothers. He only had time to think about how he was impacted by the situation. But his brothers were in the same boat. They didn't have time to think about how Joseph was feeling about it. They were too caught up being frustrated by the unfairness and injustice of the whole thing. For them, it felt like if your brother was handed a brand new Tesla on his 16th birthday, while you and the rest of your siblings still share your mom's minivan. So what does this mean for our lives? So normally, you encounter a ton of people every day, right? Your siblings, your friends, your parents, your classmates, your teachers, your coaches, your band directors, your friends' parents, your siblings' friends, your Dutch Bros barista, and the list goes on, right? And what I'm about to say, I think applies to all of those people. All of the people that you interact with on a daily basis. But right now, you're stuck at home, right? So pretty much the only people you're seeing is your family. And like Joseph and his brothers, you're probably experiencing some tension and irritation at home right now. And that's normal, but we are responsible for the way that we treat the people around us. Don't get me wrong, you aren't alone here. Being stuck at home has made me realize just how selfish and prideful I am. The other day, I was watching a video on my phone, and Ryan started playing another video on his computer in the same room, and I freaked out on him because it bothered me that our videos were clashing. My freak out was uncalled for, but all I could think about is, how is this affecting me? I'm annoyed, I'm inconvenienced. My video is more important than Ryan's. So like Joseph and his brothers, I escalated myself above Ryan and what he was feeling. So Paul, one of the authors in the Bible, writes this in Philippians 2. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourself. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. So here we see Jesus as the ultimate example. Think about it. Jesus is literally God. God of the entire universe. More powerful and more worthy of worship than you or me or Joseph, and yet he found no pride in that. Instead, he came to earth as a helpless baby. He gave up his God privileges and decided to live as a human instead, so that he could help us, so that he could save us, so that he could defeat death forever. Jesus humbled himself so that we could experience life. He put us ahead of himself. And this is our example of humility. So ask yourself, how are you impacting your family dynamics right now? Are you improving the environment or making things more difficult for everyone? Are you operating only from the question of how does this affect me? Or are you thinking of others ahead of yourself? So in this time of quarantine, my encouragement to you is to look for ways to improve your relationships in your family. Help your dad unload the dishwasher. Make lunch for your mom. Do your sister's chores. Little things go a long way. Personally, this is really hard for me. I tend to be really prideful, but I'm learning that I want to be more like Jesus. And Jesus is the most humble guy I know.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us this week. We really hope that you stay connected to God during this season, but that you also stay connected to us. So please feel free to reach out if you need anything or if you have any questions. We're thinking about you guys, and we hope that you guys have a great week.